All right, well, it's 10 o'clock, guys, so we are going to get started with this webinar. This is an extra exciting webinar because I'm basically going to share how you guys can get $40,000 for free for your ADU project. So isn't that something that we all want to hear more about? So let me share my screen and then we'll jump into it. Okie dokes. So you are all here today because you're interested in CalHFA's $40,000 ADU grant, which of course you are. Why wouldn't you be interested in that? It's free money for your ADU project. So we want to talk about who's going to qualify, how to get it, and kind of what are the details of this particular program. But before I get into that, I just want to talk a little bit about who we are at Maxable and what we help people with. So we have helped homeowners all over California plan their ADU projects, and then we match them with designers and general contractors for their projects. So we do a lot of pre-project planning with people, from kind of analyzing the site and looking at what's possible, trying to find red flags, giving information on budgets and cost and things like that. And we have now completed our 300th ADU project, which was a milestone we hit last month. So we have helped a lot of homeowners with ADUs in all of the regions that you guys are joining from. So down in San Diego, where I'm from originally, into Los Angeles, where I was born, and then all the way up into the Bay Area, where I'm located now. So we have coverage all over the state, and we want to be able to help you guys. So let's talk first about who is CalHFA. This is probably not a name you guys are super familiar with. But California Housing Finance Agency is actually chartered as the state's affordable housing lender. So it's no surprise they're kind of starting to wade into the ADU space, given that a lot of government entities and politicians see ADUs as a great way to boost their affordable housing stock. So CalHFA is a completely self-supported state agency, and bonds are repaid by revenues generated through mortgage loans, not taxpayer dollars. So CalHFA started with a $50 million pool that was budgeted to allocate for this grant. Just a couple weeks ago, they added another $50 million to the budget. So now we have a pot of $100 million that they want to distribute to homeowners that want to build ADUs. So they are acting fast to encourage you to build your ADU. So the grant started at $25,000, and unfortunately, only one homeowner has been able to access that $25,000. So I think that because this was such a brand new program and because it was kind of so cutting edge, there were still a lot of kinks that needed to get worked out. So there's two pieces of good news here. One is they increased the amount of the grant from $25,000 to $40,000. And two, they've worked out some of the early kinks in the process and they're ready to start taking those applications. The other benefit for you guys that are interested in this pool is that that $100 million is still totally available. It has not really been drawn down on yet. So again, there's a necessity to kind of move quickly to access this money. So we're in kind of a weird time right now. Does anyone else kind of feel that way? You know, we're starting to kind of come out of COVID, or, you know, indications that we're moving into a recession. Home values have gone up 26.6% in the last year, which just kind of is like mind blowing, right? Look at this Zillow listing. This is a 2-bed, 2-bath, 624 square feet. So both of those bedrooms are actually closets, and it's selling for $1 million in San Diego. This is the size of a modest ADU. I mean, that just kind of blows my mind. And so there's, you know, despite kind of moving into what looks like is going to be a recession, interest rates are high, inflation is high right now, but housing prices are still through the roof. There can be some real value of exploring an ADU project during a recession. And here's why. So first, general contractors, especially over the last decade, have been insanely busy. Has anyone had the experience, I'm curious, has anyone had the experience of trying to reach out to general contractors and just not had people call you back because they're just so busy with their own projects? Or call general contractors up saying, hey, I want to do a kitchen remodel or something like that. And they're like, great, yeah, we can get you on the schedule in 8 months. That happens a lot. I see that a ton in the Bay Area, especially. So the idea is that general contractors are really busy. As you go deeper into a recession, people tend to pull back on elective remodels, kind of like kitchen remodels and bathroom remodels, because they want to be a little bit more conservative with how they're spending money, which means that GCs are not busy during recessions. And we saw this in the 2009 recession, where lots of general contractor firms went under during that period in time because they just didn't have the work to sustain themselves. So this is a really good thing for people who want to build ADUs during this time, because you don't have to compete for general contractors' attention with all of those kitchen and bathroom models that take up so much of their time. The competition and the prices could come down, and you could see that it's easier to get on their schedule. Next is, I want you to think and take advantage of things like an investor. So in down markets, investors see opportunity. They go, great, we can come in, we can buy up properties, we can build out our, portfolio, add extra ADU units when prices are lower. And then they take advantage of this. They build a lot during these down markets. And then on the boom market, then they're totally set to reap the benefits of that. I want you guys to start thinking more like investors and less like homeowners. Finally, housing costs are still at an all-time high, which we saw on the slide below. This tiny, tiny little shack in Point Loma selling for $1 million. It's the size of a modest ADU. Here's the thing. Rental prices are not coming down anytime soon, because that is not dictated by whether we're in a recession or whether we're in a bear or a bull market. It's dictated by supply and demand. And our supply is so limited on rentals in California. Our rental vacancy rate is less than 4% in the state. So for every 100 units, only 4 of them are empty at any given time, which is really, really low. So rents are still extremely high. So kind of despite, rising interest rates and all these other things, ADUs still really pencil for people, and you guys can take advantage of this in a time when maybe other homeowners aren't thinking about it in this strategic of a way. Okay, so let's get into the details of the grant. What can you use the grant for? So the grant covers any kind of pre-construction and planning cost. So what does that include? Your ADU plans, your permits, your design, and that's what we call our soft costs. So hard costs are your construction, your labor, your materials. Soft costs are designs, plans, permits. So the grant covers anything in the pre-construction. So you might be thinking, okay, well, if I get a $40,000 grant, my plans, permits, and designs probably aren't going to cost $40,000. It's going to be less than that. But you can also use the grant to buy down the interest rate on the loan you have. So that is an option as well. So if you do a cash out refinance, you could potentially use the remainder of your grant to buy down the interest rate on that loan. So that's one thing to keep in mind. What can the grant not be used for? The grant cannot be used for construction materials like, lumber, cement, your cabinets, your flooring, paint, anything like that. And it cannot be used for construction labor. So again, it can only be used for those soft costs, okay? Now, who is the grant for? The grant is intended for low to mid-income borrowers, not households, and the max income varies across the state. So you might be thinking, okay, do I make enough, or do I make, will I qualify for this based on the income thresholds? I hope I don't make too much money. That's probably the first time you've ever thought in your life, I hope I don't make too much money for this. But the thresholds are really, really lenient. So in Los Angeles, if you make, and again, these are not household, this is not you combining your household income. This is the income of the borrower. So if one person is applying for the loan, they're not looking at the income of the household, they're looking at the borrower. So as the borrower, if you make under 180 in Los Angeles, under 211 in San Diego, or under 300,000 in the Bay Area, then you qualify for this grant. So imagining a lot of people are going to qualify. So what are some of the other requirements of the grant that you need to know about? The grant isn't for investors. So if you own that rental property in California, but you live in Colorado, you have to sign an affidavit certifying that you're occupying the house. So that is one thing to kind of keep in mind. Here's the other thing, is you have to work with an approved lender. So what CalHFA did is they took a pool of lenders that have escrow accounts. That was a requirement. And they worked with and trained a specific group of lenders on how this process was going to work. So you can't just go and call up your credit union and say, okay, great, I need to finance my ADU project, and then later circle back and get the grant. It doesn't work like that. You have to work with an approved lender through their system. So we have all of the access and contact information for all the approved lenders in the CalHFA program. So if you're looking for a lender and you want to take advantage of the program, we can certainly help connect you. Now, if you intend to pay for cash, you don't qualify for the grant. So unfortunately, you have to be financing your ADU. If you're just going to pay for it out of pocket, the state isn't going to give you the grant money. But there is a catch here. The catch is that almost all of the lenders that are in this CalHFA grant program require you to refinance your primary mortgage. They take a first position on the mortgage. Now, the reason why that's not great is because I'm guessing, and I'd be curious to see how many of you guys did this, I'm guessing that most of you refinanced your 30-year fixed mortgage last year. So who did that? You guys want to put in the comments, how many people refinanced their mortgage? And what rate did you guys get? Did you get 2.5? Let's see what people are saying. Yeah, 2.75, 2.3, 2.3. So those are some absolutely fantastic rates, right? Someone else said they pulled out cash right before the rates jumped. Very smart thinking. Even 2.99, that's a fantastic rate. So, oh my gosh, someone got 1.875. That can't be a 30-year fix, but hey, good for you. So anyway, the point being here though, is if you got this absolutely fantastic rate and you've locked in this rate, you really don't ever want to touch that mortgage again. That's almost free money at this point. And so it's a really expensive way to get that $40,000 grant if you then have to refinance your primary back up to a 6% mortgage rate, right? Okay, we've got some good news. And I'm going to tell you that in talking to people that are familiar with the CalHFA grant program, most of them don't even know what I'm about to tell you guys, okay? So we have inside information on which lenders will take a second position loan. And there are very, very few of them. So I actually called one of them this morning because I wanted to confirm before I told 400 people on a webinar that there was a second position loan that they could take where they wouldn't have to refinance their entire house. And he did confirm this all with me this morning. So we had a conversation about what the specifics are of that second position loan. And here I'm going to share it with you guys right now. So these are the terms on that second position loan. One, you have to take out a loan of at least $200,000. You have to have at least 25 to 35% equity on your home. And your loan rate will actually be, he said that these numbers are slightly off because we made the slide deck earlier in the week. He said the percentage rates are closer to 7.5% to 9%. But again, significantly better than having to refinance your entire mortgage to a 6% interest rate. Now, the other thing that's required is that GC bids have to be formatted in an appropriate way so that that can qualify for the loan. So again, we're going to work with general contractors in our network to make sure that you guys get what you need on your end to qualify for the grant. Now, here's another scenario. Let's say you're doing a garage conversion and you want to do a studio, for example. That's probably not a $200,000 project, even in the Bay Area. That would be a very fancy, you might have like a gilded gold toilet or something in the ADU to spend $200,000. But you can use the leftover amount from that loan for other projects around the house. So you could do renovations or additions to the main home or, whatever, maybe you've been thinking about putting solar panels on or replacing the roof that's like getting up there in age. You can do those other type of home improvement projects, landscaping, anything like that would be fine. Now, there is no early repayment penalty for that, but you cannot repay that $200,000 until you have your certificate of occupancy. So the ADU has to be completely finished before you can repay that loan. Okay, so all sounds pretty good from here on. So now how do you actually get the grant? Let's go into that, okay? Okay, so I talked a little bit at the beginning that there's $100 million that's funded and allocated for this program. So if you do some simple math of a $40,000 grant and you do some, division, you can see that 2,500 people are going to get this money. That's not a huge amount of people in a state with millions of people that are interested in ADUs. So we have more than 200 people on this webinar right now. We had more than 400 people register. So a bunch of people are going to watch the recap of this. And then when we post it to our YouTube channel, a few thousand more people are going to watch it. So what that means is the race is on to get the money. When that pool of money runs out, it runs out. And so it's really important that we act with kind of speed and efficiency to get you guys connected to what you need to get the grant. So we want our Maxable clients to be first in line for this money. And there are a lot of moving parts and pieces you guys have to understand. So here's what you need. First, you need an approved lender under the CalHFA program that is going to have the right loan product for you. So again, we talked about the difference between taking out a position on the first mortgage and having to refinance the whole thing versus a second position mortgage. Next, you need a designer that's going to specialize in ADUs for a couple of reasons. One is you want the permit process to go smoothly so that you can get to that certificate of owner occupancy and get that grant. It's a reimbursement. So you get that grant money paid back towards you. So obviously time is important. And if you're working with someone who's inexperienced, that could be a lot of additional revisions at the city that maybe you don't have time for. The other thing is that you want to work with a designer that specializes in ADUs because you want the form and function of the ADU to be wonderful and like what you expect of it. And, you want to maximize all that square footage and have enough storage. And, you need someone who can work on, design with a lot of constraints. Working in ADUs, it's not a blank slate in the backyard. There's existing trees, there's patio space, there's utility connections. How do you hook up into the mains? Where do you place the ADU so it's most cost efficient? How do you create privacy between the primary dwelling and the accessory dwelling unit? Can you go 2 stories? All of these different items you want to be thinking about. So it's really important that the designer specializes in ADUs so that you get the best out of them and that you also can go through the permit process quickly. Then you need to get connected to licensed general contractors that can format their bids in a way to comply with the grant application process. So again, we have a pool of general contractors that we're working with that we've worked with for years now that do great work, are cost effective. They're not going to be the most expensive. They're not going to be the cheapest. And we're working with them to make sure that they give their estimates and their bids in a way that will comply with the grant application process. And finally, you need someone that can help guide you along the way. And of course, we hope that that is us. So if you're interested in having our support and help through this whole process, kind of in addition to webinars or, case studies or things we post about, you're welcome to book a planning call with someone on our team today. We have a lot of expertise in ADUs. We've helped a lot of homeowners in exactly this kind of situation. And we'd be happy to connect you to those lending resources, those design resources you need, and the general contracting resources that you need to, 1, just have a successful project, but 2, we would love for you guys to be able to access that grant money on top of everything. So if you're interested in signing up for one of those calls, you can go to maximalespace.com/start. There'll be kind of an intake form with some basic questions that we're going to ask about your project. Now, if you're just getting started and you need, the first step is to connect to that lender to get pre-approved and to find that designer, that's a great place to start with us. If you already have the designer and you just need to get connected to the lender and the general contractors, we can help you with that too. It's the same link. So either way, we can help you. It's app.maximalespace.com/start. Okay, so if you guys want to click that link in there, you'll be able to get started. So I want to talk a little bit about how this process works then. So let's say you go through the link, you book a call with us. We want to start working on basically customizing our recommendations based off your situation. So if you're in Los Angeles and want to do a garage conversion versus someone in San Diego, that wants to, build a 1,200 square foot standalone in the backyard for their mom. Those are two very different conversations, and we've kind of seen it all. So, we'll give you the opportunity to kind of open up, tell us what you're thinking so that we can start thinking through, what do we think the best fits for you? We work with prefab companies, stick build, so design and general contractors, and we work with design build firms. So really kind of whatever format that you want to explore, we can help give recommendations on. After that initial planning call, we'll want to do, what we typically call a site evaluation. So we'll do some analysis on the property. We'll talk to you about who we think the right partner, the design partner would be for you. Typically, we'll invite them into that site evaluation meeting as well, so that we can have a three-way conversation about your property. If you like that designer and you want to hire them, fantastic. If not, we're happy to help you continue to look for that right fit. Once you sign a contract though, here's what we recommend. So after you sign a contract with your designer, what they're going to do is they're going to go out on site and they're going to do what's called a site measure. It's exactly what it sounds. They're going to measure the whole property, figure out, what the dimensions are, where they can build, look for where the utilities are, things like that. Where's their concrete? Where's permeable surface? Kind of all these different things they're looking at. They're also going to want to look, how do I maximize good views? How do I create privacy on the space? So they're thinking through a lot of different details. About a month in to your, starting your design, they'll send you back what are called schematic designs. Schematic designs are kind of a fancy way of saying a floor plan. It's essentially a bird's eye view of the layout of what the ADU is going to be. You'll know your dimensions, how it fits in the yard, etc. They'll also show you what are called elevations. That's the side profile for that ADU. Now, what we want to do at that point in time is we're going to reach back out to you a month after you sign your contract. You should have schematic designs by that point in time. Now, what we want to do at that point in time is help you source 3 general contractor estimates, so that for a few reasons. One is we want to get you feedback quickly on what the cost is going to be. I have heard of so many horror stories, kind of having done this for so many years now. And what is the most painful is when people don't get price information early. They get to the very end of the process. They spend 7 months in permitting. They finally get their permits. They're so excited about their designs. And then they discover that they're $100,000 over budget. I mean, talk about soul crushing. And that happens. So one, we want to get early feedback while the designs are still malleable on what's this going to cost. So if you are doing a garage conversion plus an expansion or something like that, or you're doing 2 stories, you get the plans, you get the schematics, we send it out to 3 general contractors for estimates, and it all comes back $80,000 above what you can afford. The good news is, okay, we understand that early. And now what we can do is, while the plans are still malleable, we can help make those, your designer can make those changes to bring the cost in line with what your actual budget is. The next is, and we kind of hinted at this earlier, is that general contractors are extremely busy. Some book out more than a year in advance. So what we want to do is, if you work on those estimates and find your general contractor early, then you can get on their calendar. What we recommend doing is putting down a $1,000 deposit with the general contractor firm that you like best based on the estimates you're receiving. And the benefit of that is, one, they know now that you're a client, and so they can help you think through and value engineer the project from there on out, which, value engineering, if you guys have been in some of our webinars before, this is something I talk about a ton. It's essentially a way of designing the plans so that they are cost effective to build. So looking at things like sharing a wet wall or using engineered trusses as opposed to a custom roof line, or kind of all these things that can really significantly impact your overall construction costs. So it's hugely advantageous to lock in that general contractor bid early in the process. So that's, again, something that we're going to be able to help people with. So again, going back to kind of what I touched at the beginning, we have successfully helped 300 homeowners go through this process. So we understand the importance of hiring the right team, and we want to help you guys be able to, 1, hire the right team, and 2, get access to awesome grant opportunities like what's on the table. Okay, so again, if you're ready to get started, look at the chat. We'll post the actual URL there. It's app.maxwellspace.com/start. So, all right. And the other thing that we're going to touch base on quickly is that we have 2 amazing tours coming up. So if you're in the Los Angeles area, which I know a lot of you are, we have a citywide LA tour this Saturday. So you guys can check out tickets. We have garage conversions. We have an ADU on a multifamily property. We have detached ADUs. There's some prefab modular units on the tour. So there's a really cool variety of projects. We have 6 units. And if you're thinking about an ADU, even if you're just in the planning stage, this is so unbelievably beneficial to be able to see and get ideas. The other kind of cool thing about the tour is we will have some of the general contractors and designers responsible for the unit on site. So you can, talk to them, ask them questions, and we'll post budget breakdowns for all of the units. So you can see, what is a $200,000 ADU look like versus what is a $300,000 ADU look like. We also have a tour coming up in the Bay Area. That's in early August. Tickets are still available for that as well. The region for that is going to be from basically San Jose all the way up the peninsula. So there'll be some gorgeous units, including this garage conversion with a loft, and one of my favorite projects. I really love this one. There's a lot of really cool units on that Bay Area tour. So someone's asking where the LA tour is. Basically, if you go kind of north of the airport, up into kind of West Hollywood, down through Culver City, and then back over, that's the general region that we tried to kind of keep all of the ADUs within that region. Okay, great. So here's some of the units that'll be on the Los Angeles tour. And for any of you who are looking for tickets, that's adutour.net is how you can access those tickets. And again, these homeowners are opening up their personal spaces for you. So if you do go on the tour, please thank them for being willing to do this. And I like this one a lot too. This is a beautiful one. And if you guys are building an ADU and we do tours next year, think about paying it forward and allowing us to feature your beautiful ADU next year on the tour as well. This one is really cool. This is one of the LA ones. It's got a rooftop garden, which is pretty awesome as well. This one's in West LA. This is one of the prefab units that will be on the tour. There's the great inside. There's another prefab unit on the tour you guys can come see. So if there's been some excitement about prefab and you want to see what's going on, we've got some really cool things. So we hope to see you both, the Bay Area group and the LA group. We hope to see you there. Unfortunately, San Diego is already passed. We had more than 300 homeowners come through in San Diego to check out the tour. So that was a lot of fun. Okay, one final note before we move over into some of the Q&A that we've got is we are doing a webinar every other Thursday that's a much smaller group. So there's several hundred of you in this webinar today, but we're going to cover specifically how to source a designer and a general contractor for your project in these webinars. And I go into a lot of detail about that. And they're more like kind of office hours. They tend to be smaller groups. So last week we had 5 or 6 people on there, and you basically have an hour with me to talk about, what you're doing and get suggestions and advice. So this is something that you guys can take advantage of as well. We put the links to register for these at the bottom of every of the newsletters we send out. And it's not designed to be a huge group. It's supposed to be a little bit more intimate. So again, if that's something, you guys are like, okay, I'm feeling excited and energized about this grant. I want to get started right away so I can get that certificate of owner occupancy and then get my, basically reimbursement of my $40,000 soft cost. This would be a great kind of stepping stone into that, or obviously booking a planning call with us directly is the most direct way to then kind of get your property analyzed and then get connected to those design and general contractor resources. So we, and then we'll send, April's asking, can we get a recording of this webinar? Absolutely. We'll send this out to everyone that attended. And then the next date of this how to source your designer and GC webinar is actually tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. So again, we only have a handful of people signed up so far for that webinar. So the next one is tomorrow, and then the one after that will be in 2 weeks. And there's the dates and information there. Okay, so let's go through. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. I know we've got a lot kind of coming through on questions. So let me go through some interesting. Let's see. So someone's asking, Joshua's asking, how many ADUs can you have on a property if you can use the grant and loan for 2 ADUs? So Joshua, anywhere that's zoned residentially within California, you can add an ADU. Now, if it's zoned single family, you can add 1 ADU plus a JADU. If it's zoned multifamily, you can add 2 ADUs. So if it's zoned single family though, you're stuck with 1 ADU. Someone asked, is Central California out of your area? So Chris, right now we operate in San Diego up through Orange County, Los Angeles, and the Bay Area. And for those of you who are interested in getting connected to the lenders, we're happy to make those connections through the planning calls. And we can also send more information out after this webinar. Kathleen's asking, how do you get a certificate of occupancy? So a certificate of occupancy is basically the final stamp that you get from the city in whatever city you're working in that says this unit is legal, everything is up to code, they got the permits pulled, and now you can legally rent it to another human being. So it's the very final step in the process. Once you have that certificate of occupancy, you can move into the unit. Someone is, it's certified to be livable. And that's what you're gonna need to get that reimbursement for that $40,000 of soft cost. So just as a heads up there. Someone else asked if we work with prefab ADUs as well. We absolutely do. We have traditional stick build general contracting partners. We work with some prefab companies, and there's some new technology coming out that is actually pretty cool. I don't know if any of you guys, probably you guys are also smart, you've heard of some of this, but panelized modular is another technology that I really like a lot. It's kind of like a hybrid between, pure modular and stick build construction. The idea is you build out the framing package and do some of the electrical and plumbing rough-ins in the factory, and then you flat pack the panels and ship them to the site, and you can kind of stand it all up, almost like an erector set on site, and it can save a lot of time. But kind of one of the advantages is that all of the inspections are run as if it's a stick build site. So the city knows how to handle the type of construction. They don't have to get used to kind of new materials or a new company or anything like that. Okay, Karen is saying, what if I've already started the process? She's at the point where she's ready to pull permits. So Karen, if you're that far along in the process, that's fantastic. Do you have your general contractors already? If not, reach out to us. We're happy to help you. If you already have your general contractor, make sure they format the bid in a way that'll qualify for that application. Get connected to one of the lenders that is approved through the CalHFA program. And as soon as you have that certificate of occupancy, you can qualify for that reimbursement of that grant. Someone asked, can I apply for an ADU on a 3-unit property? Yes, you can. We kind of covered this earlier. If it's a multifamily zone property and it's not about the base zoning, it's about the structures on the property. So this confuses a lot of people. The state will call it multifamily if at least 2 units are connected. So if you have a duplex, but the duplex is 2 individual non-connected units, you actually can only add 1 ADU. If the duplex is connected and there's a shared wall, then you get 2 ADUs. Why? I don't know, but that's how it works. Okay, so someone said, okay, so you'd have to occupy your primary and rent out the ADU, or you could rent out you could occupy the ADU and rent out the primary. Okay, someone's saying, are Maxable GCs familiar or aware of the bid formatting requirements? I'm in the process of obtaining bids from a couple Maxable GCs network. Yes, Amanda. And by the way, hello, I see you on LinkedIn sometimes. Yes, we will help make sure that the GC bids come through in a way that works for the program. Yes. What if the property owner is an architect and could do this work and pay for his work and construction? That's kind of an interesting thing. That actually might have stumped me. I'm not sure. I think it would be great to talk to one of the lenders about how you could structure that. If you have your own LLC, you know, maybe the payments could come through there, but I think you'd have to think about or work with a lender to make sure you can conform. So owner build won't qualify. Patricia, you have to be a licensed general contractor to be able to take advantage of the program. So just as a heads up. And then yes, we will be sending this webinar out as an email, as well as a link to sign up for those planning calls if you guys want to sign up for those. Just as a heads up, since we have our event this weekend, we're expecting to be very busy in the next couple of weeks. So have a little bit of patience with us, but we're going to try to get to everyone's planning calls as quickly as we can. We talked about a prepayment penalty. There is no prepayment penalty, but you need a certificate of occupancy before you can repay that loan in full. Eric is asking, would a HELOC qualify instead of a refinance? So again, kind of what we touched on there earlier, which is we really don't want you guys have to do a refinance. It doesn't make sense given that you have, you know, you're locked in at such low rates. So ideally what we want to do is connect you to a lender that has that mortgage product that allows them to take a secondary on the loan. Oh, Robert asked, will I be at one of the properties during the tour? Yes, I will be in Los Angeles. I will be at the Bay Area event as well. Sadie, if you could remind me which property I'm at so I could tell everyone, I would be happy to meet you guys in person and talk about your projects. That would be great. I will be at the Airlane ADU. So if you guys are in LA and you want to come say hi, I would love to say hi to all of you. So someone's asking, what if you pay cash for the ADU? Can you qualify for the grant or do you need a loan? Joanne, you have to take out financing. If you pay cash, you can't qualify for the grant. So that is one of the stipulations, that unfortunately you can't pay cash for it, which, you know, given that the market is kind of tanking right now, it's a great time to invest your money in the stock market. So, okay. And then someone wants to know when the Bay Area tour is. That's August 13th. I think I got that date right. Yep, it's August 13th. And again, we will send out follow-up links so that you guys can book tickets for those tours. So someone's saying, what if soft costs have already been paid before the grant, before one is approved for the grant? Michael, you have to pay for your soft costs first. You basically have to be done with your project before you get reimbursed. So that's why I'm saying is there's this race now to get to the finish line so that you can apply, get approved for the grant and get reimbursed for those soft costs after the certificate of occupancy on the unit is, you know, given to you. So that's really important. You know, someone's asking about a JADU and an ADU, and would that, you know, would you be able to apply for 2 grants? I don't think that you're going to be able to apply for 2 grants. We were actually discussing this internally this morning of, you know, would JADUs qualify for the grant program? And the reality is I don't know the answer to that. Since the program is so unbelievably new and there's kind of updates happening daily at this point with the CalHFA committee, which we have contacts there as well. You know, we just don't have all the details yet. So that's why it's so important that we want to make sure that we're able to work with you guys through this process and get you all of the information that you need. Again, if you guys have already started, there's no issue with that. You can have already started. It's not a problem. Okay. Okay, so I think we're gonna wrap up this webinar. Again, thank you everyone for joining. I hope that we see you in LA and the Bay Area. If not, jump on that planning call link so that we can help get you connected to the right lender. the right designer, the right general contractors, and basically support you guys start to finish through the project. We've done this with more than 300 families now, and we would love to be able to help you guys as well. So again, thank you everyone for your interest and enthusiasm in the webinar. It was wonderful chatting with all of you, and I will hopefully see some of you this weekend. Okay. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.